Welcome to this deep dive. We're going to be taking a look at David Lynch.
Oh, yeah.
And
I'm excited for this one.
Yeah. And I know that you requested this one. You wanted to get a better grasp on his legacy, especially now that he's passed away.
Yeah, it's a good time to reflect on his work.
Yeah, focusing on his life and his career. And, hopefully by the time we get through this, we'll have a little better understanding of what made his style so unique.
Sounds good.
And see if we can uncover some of those recurring themes that he wove throughout his work.
All right, well, let's jump in.
Yeah, right from the start, it seems like Lynch was drawn to that darkness lurking beneath the surface of everyday life.
Mm-hmm.
He described his childhood as idyllic, a classic middle American upbringing.
Okay.
Then he adds this really evocative image. He says, but on the cherry tree, there's this pitch, oozing out some black, some yellow, and millions of red ants crawling all over it. I discovered that if one looks a little closer at this beautiful world, there are always red ants underneath.
That image, I think that image kind of encapsulates so much of what makes Lynch's work so compelling.
Mm-hmm.
There's this duality, there's this sense that darkness always exists just beneath the surface of beauty and normalcy.
Right.
And that becomes a recurring motif that we see throughout so many of his films.
It's almost like he's saying, don't be fooled by the facade. There's always something lurking beneath.
Exactly. And that fascination with the underbelly of American life, the things that we try to sweep under the rug,
Yeah.
that becomes such a central theme in so many of his films.
Yeah, so, he starts out with this passion for painting experiments with a few short films, and then explodes onto the scene with Eraserhead.
Right.
What made this film so groundbreaking?
I think Eraserhead was just unlike anything audiences had really seen before.
Yeah.
I mean, it was this surreal, nightmarish exploration of fatherhood and industrial decay that defied traditional filmmaking conventions. It relied heavily on atmosphere and sound design and these incredibly unsettling visuals to create this deeply disturbing yet strangely beautiful experience.
Yeah.
And it even captivated Stanley Kubrick, who considered it one of his all-time favorite films.
Wow.
Can you imagine getting that kind of praise from Kubrick?
I know that's gotta be high praise.
Yeah.
I've heard that Lynch actually had to take on a paper route to fund the film's production.
Oh, wow. That's dedication.
Yeah, that really highlights the challenges that independent filmmakers face.
Yeah.
Especially when dealing with such unconventional material.
Yeah.
But that financial struggle clearly paid off in terms of the film's lasting impact on cinema.
So then after Eraserhead, he could have easily continued down this path of pure surrealism, but instead he takes a sharp turn and he makes The Elephant Man a more conventional biopic. Yeah, and the Elephant Man, I think, demonstrated Lynch's remarkable range as a filmmaker. He proved that he could handle a more traditional narrative structure,
Right.
while still maintaining his own unique visual style.
And it was a huge success, wasn't it?
Absolutely, it was a critical and commercial triumph.
Wow.
It earned 8 Oscar nominations,
Wow.
including Best Director.
Okay.
So this really marked a turning point, I think, in Lynch's career,
Right.
establishing him as a major force in Hollywood.
But then came Dune,
Oh, yeah.
this big budget adaptation of this beloved sci-fi novel.
Right.
And yet it was a massive flop.
Yeah.
What went wrong?
Well, I think Dune is a classic cautionary tale of studio interference.
Okay.
Lynch had a very specific vision for the film, but the studio executives wanted something more commercially viable, something more mainstream.
Right.
And so they pressured him to make all these changes that ultimately compromised his artistic vision.
I remember reading that Lynch was so unhappy with the final cut that he actually tried to have his name removed from the film.
He did, for the extended version, he used the pseudonym Judas Booth,
Wow.
which really speaks volumes, I think, about his feelings toward the studio's meddling.
Yeah.
This clash between artistic integrity and commercial pressures.
Right.
It's a theme that, unfortunately, plays out far too often in Hollywood.
It makes you wonder how many great films have been compromised by that studio interference.
Yeah, that's a question worth considering.
So Lynch bounced back with Blue Velvet.
Yeah, and that's the film that truly solidified Lynchian as a recognizable term in cinema.
So what exactly makes a film Lynchian? Can you break it down for us?
Well, it's a blend of several different elements.
Right.
I think Blue Velvet, for instance, showcases that unsettling juxtaposition of suburban normality and dark hidden secrets that defines so much of Lynch's work.
Right.
It's also got those signature 1960s pop songs like Bobby Vinton's Blue Velvet,
Right.
which contribute to the film's eerie atmosphere.
Yeah, the way he uses music is so effective, it adds like another layer of unease
Right.
to already disturbing scenes.
Oh.
It's like
And thematically, it's pure Lynch.
Yeah. Okay.
It's a deep dive into the undercurrents of desire, violence, perversion, lurking beneath this facade of respectability.
Yeah, speaking of exploring the dark side, we can't forget about Twin Peaks.
Oh, Twin Peaks, yeah, that was a television phenomenon that broke all the rules.
It really was.
Blending soap opera melodrama with mystery, surrealism, and the supernatural.
Right.
It captivated audiences, and it left this really enduring mark, I think, on television storytelling.
I remember being glued to the TV every week, trying to solve the mystery of who killed Laura Palmer alongside Agent Dale Cooper with his love for coffee and cherry pie.
Yeah, it was groundbreaking television.
It was.
But even with its success, Twin Peaks wasn't without its creative challenges.
Right.
There was significant tension between Lynch's vision and the demands of network television.
Right, like when ABC executives forced them to reveal Laura Palmer's killer.
Yes, exactly.
It's rumored that Lynch was so unhappy with that decision that he deliberately ended the show on a cliffhanger, leaving audiences with more questions than answers.
It certainly highlights the limitations that can exist within network television, especially for a filmmaker as unconventional as Lynch.
Yeah.
But before we get lost in the mysteries of Twin Peaks, let's take a step back and look at some of the recurring themes and stylistic choices that weave through Lynch's entire body of work.
Okay.
From film to television to music. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. Let's unpack the Lynchian aesthetic and see how it manifests across these different mediums.
All right, let's do it. What's so intriguing about Lynch is that even with his seemingly straightforward films, they're filled with these recurring motifs and visual cues that become like a kind of cinematic language.
Okay.
It's like he created his own vocabulary for exploring the darker corners of the human psyche.
Okay, I'm ready to decode the Lynchian lexicon. What are some of these recurring themes that we should be on the lookout for?
Well, I think dreams and the subconscious are absolutely central to his work. Lynch himself has talked about the power of waking dreams as a source of inspiration.
Right.
And he's not just interested in literal dreams, but also in that hazy space between reality and fantasy.
Right.
Where logic breaks down and strange things can happen.
Yeah, we see that blurring of boundaries in films like Mulholland Drive and Inland Empire.
Exactly.
They're like cinematic puzzles where you're never quite sure what's real and what's imagined.
Right, and it's not just the narrative structure that evokes this dreamlike state, it's also his use of imagery and sound.
Right.
Think about the Red Room in Twin Peaks, or the unsettling industrial soundscapes in Eraserhead.
Right.
He creates these atmospheres that are both familiar and utterly alien.
The soundscapes are incredible.
Yeah.
It's like he takes ordinary sounds and distorts them into something both recognizable and terrifying.
And then there's his fascination with industrial decay and machinery.
Yeah.
You see this motif popping up again and again in his work, from the clanging factories of Eraserhead to the shadowy train yards of Lost Highway.
Right.
There's this sense of, dark mechanical forces at play, often juxtaposed with moments of strange beauty.
That juxtaposition is so striking, like in The Elephant Man, where you have the beauty of John Merrick's soul contrasted with this harsh industrial world that he's forced to inhabit.
Right, that's a great observation.
Yeah.
It's as if Lynch is using these industrial settings as a metaphor for the dehumanizing aspects of modern society.
Yeah.
The way we can become cogs in a machine.
And what about the female characters in his films?
Right.
They often seem to embody this duality, this split identity.
Absolutely. Think about Cheryl Lee playing both Laura Palmer and her cousin Maddie in Twin Peaks.
Right.
Or Naomi Watts navigating multiple personas in Mulholland Drive. These women are often both victims and temptresses, grappling with these fragmented identities within narratives that are equally fractured and nonlinear.
Yeah, it's like they're trapped in a hall of mirrors, struggling to make sense of their own reflection.
Exactly. They're navigating these complex psychological landscapes, often in environments that are just as distorted and surreal as their own internal states.
So, to sum it up, a Lynchian film is one that likely leaves you feeling off-kilter, disturbed, and maybe even a little bit changed.
But also strangely captivated.
Yeah.
Wanting to revisit those unsettling images and unravel those mysteries.
Right.
Lynch's films have this way of getting under your skin and staying with you long after the credits roll.
Right.
He doesn't provide easy answers. He invites you to participate in the mystery.
Speaking of mystery, we've covered, Lynch's early life, his journey through Hollywood, and some of the key themes that define his work. But he wasn't just a filmmaker, was he?
No, not at all. Lynch's creative energy extended far beyond the realm of cinema.
I mean, he was a painter, a musician, a furniture designer,
Wow.
and a passionate advocate for transcendental meditation. I mean,
Yeah.
he was a true multi-hyphenate artist.
I'm curious to explore these other facets of his creativity. Where should we start?
Well, I think his interest in music goes way back. You know, he was experimenting with sound design long before he made his first film. And that fascination with sound is evident throughout his work.
Right.
I mean, the soundtracks are often just as important as the visuals in creating those unsettling atmospheres.
I remember listening to his album Crazy Clown Time a few years back.
Yeah.
It was a wild ride, this blend of electronic music, blues, and spoken word.
Yeah.
It was definitely Lynchian.
It's a great example, I think, of how his musical sensibilities are just as experimental and unconventional as his filmmaking.
Yeah.
And his collaborations with other musicians like Angelo Badalamenti, Julie Cruz, even Likely are definitely worth checking out.
Wow. So it's safe to say that music was an integral part of his artistic vision. It wasn't just background noise. Right.
It was another way for him to express those darker, more abstract ideas.
Absolutely. And then there's his visual art. You know, Lynch was a painter long before he ever picked up a camera.
Right.
And he continued to create art throughout his career. You know, his paintings are just as dark and surreal as his films, often incorporating text and found objects to create these unsettling juxtapositions.
It's like he's always playing with our perceptions, challenging us to see the world in a new way.
Exactly. And then there's transcendental meditation,
Right.
which played such a profoundly important role in his life.
Yeah.
I mean, he practiced it daily and credited it with unlocking his creativity and finding inner peace.
Wow.
He even founded the David Lynch Foundation to promote transcendental meditation and its benefits to others.
That's incredible. It's inspiring to see an artist so dedicated to a practice that brought him so much peace and creative fulfillment. It seems like all of these different creative outlets, filmmaking, music, painting, even transcendental meditation, they were all interconnected for Lynch.
Right.
They were all part of his larger exploration of consciousness, creativity, and the mysteries of the human experience.
That's a great way to put it. It was all part of his own unique journey.
It strikes me that even with all of this exploration of his life and work, there's still this sense of mystery surrounding David Lynch.
Yeah.
You know, his films don't offer easy explanations. They leave you with more questions than answers.
And I think that's a key part of his enduring appeal. Lynch's work isn't about neatly tied up resolutions. It's about confronting the mysteries of the human heart and the shadows that lurk beneath the surface of everyday life.
Yeah.
You know, he invites us to sit with the discomfort, the ambiguity, and draw our own conclusions.
It's like he's giving us the pieces of a puzzle, but leaving it up to us to assemble the picture.
Right.
To find meaning in the chaos.
Exactly. And that's what makes his work so endlessly fascinating and ripe for interpretation.
Yeah.
You know, it sparks conversations, debates, and a deeper engagement with the art itself.
He once said, "I like to dive into a dream world that I've made or discovered a world I choose." You can't really get others to experience it, but right there is the power of cinema.
He's giving us a glimpse into his dream world, but he's also inviting us to bring our own dreams, our own interpretations to the experience.
Exactly. You know, he doesn't want to spoon feed us answers.
Right.
He wants us to actively participate in the creative process to fill in the gaps with our own thoughts and feelings. That's what elevates his work, I think, beyond mere entertainment and into the realm of true art.
So for anyone listening who hasn't yet experienced the world of David Lynch, I urge you to take the plunge, start with a film, a TV show, even one of his music albums. You might be surprised by what you discover about his work and maybe even about yourself.
Because with Lynch, there's always something new to uncover,
Right.
another layer to peel back, another mystery to ponder.
Yeah.
You know, his work lingers in your mind, challenging you to confront your own subconscious fears and desires. He was truly one of a kind.
Yeah.
His unique vision will continue to influence and inspire generations of artists to come.
Absolutely.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
It was a good one.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep the dream alive.